Welcome to episode 2 of my brand new podcast called Pick Up and Play. My name is DJ Switch, and since 2011, I have been the DJ and MC for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Because of my role within that community, I've met all kinds of amazing and interesting people, and today I'm going to be speaking with one of those folks. He's a YouTuber that goes by the name John Riggs, and we have a very, very long conversation. In fact, it was so long that I could only put about half of it up on YouTube. So if you want to see the other half, it's available at my Patreon. It's patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. One last thing before we get started, I have to give a big thank you to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, who is partnering with me on this brand new show. And I am looking forward to working with them quite a bit more in the future. We've had a fantastic, over a decade of working together, myself and the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And I couldn't be more excited to be sharing this journey of this new podcast with them. And so my thanks goes out to the folks at PRGE. You can check them out at retrogamingexpo.com. But for now, here's my interview with John Riggs. Hey, so John Riggs, how are you feeling?
You know what's funny? I get asked that more and more often as the years go by, and it throws me off every time because I've been asking people how they've been feeling since the mid-90s when I worked at Rite Aid. That was my greeting when people would, because I used to work at Rite Aid. Usually there's a front cash register, somebody would walk in. And it started out with this, me kind of saying like, hey, how's it going? Or you're like, hey, what's going on? Or whatever. And then it was my boss. And this is a true story where it came from. I don't know if I've ever shared this information with anyone else. It was my boss at Rite Aid who once when I was sitting there, someone came in, we're just smiling. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Rite Aid or whatever. And he kind of looked up and he kind of smiled. He was like, how are you feeling? It was like, ooh, I like that. I'm just going to start saying that from now on. And unfortunately, it became what we call in radio a crutch, where I used it at Rite Aid, I used it at the video store, I used it on the radio, and then thanks to YouTube, now I just, without even thinking about it, it just becomes a thing. So I'm feeling great. I appreciate you asking.
Let me tell you what I like about that, because I've been a professional MC for a little over 25 years now.
Oh yeah.
And I don't like getting too into politics and stuff. Like, this is a video game podcast. We're going to keep it video games, but I will tell you, in recent years, it's been far more important for me to be inclusive in my language when I address a crowd full of people or a room full of people, right? So as an MC, I've started to work ladies and gentlemen out of my lexicon, and I've started looking for other ways to address people. I usually default to folks. Hey, folks, welcome to the thing, whatever, blah, 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 right? That's one thing I really like about how you feeling. It doesn't matter who they are. Nope. Everybody is feeling some kind of way, and it's just a sort of a caring way of saying, hey, how are you? Welcome.
Right. Want to know how you're feeling. That's right.
It works really well, man.
And, thanks.
And it doesn't require like 20 years of deprogramming to get out of the habit of doing that.
Yeah, that's certainly a thing. So
let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
Your YouTube channel obviously is doing really well. You got your silver play button this last year, which is awesome accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But on top of talking about video games on your YouTube channel, you also are you still working in radio as your day job?
I am. Yeah. I never left my day job. I'm still there. The people I work with know I do the YouTube stuff too on the side.
Oh, really?
And one of my coworkers recently friended me on Facebook. Is like, oh, hey, we work together now, and I was like, sure, I'll accept whatever. I'm not here to hide anything. And then the next day at work, she came up to me and she was like, oh my God, I didn't realize you had this whole other life outside of. Because at work, I'm just, it's like when you go home for the holidays, you're just some dude, So at work, I'm the guy who, I'm one of our creative services director. I'm a local broadcast journalist. I'm on the air too. I write our local articles, that kind of stuff. And I take care of a lot of our commercial production. I produce a lot of local commercials. So I'm usually just that guy. She comes up to me and says, here's the script, and I produce it for her. And that's just kind of my job, but yeah, this whole other, everyone has a side hustle, and especially in radio, man, I have a coworker who is a professional clown. I used to have a coworker who was a professional magician. So we also have the MCs, that makes sense for radio. We have the MCs. Right. A lot of them go from radio to becoming a public information officer or something like that. I just happen to have a YouTube channel. So it's just,
it works really well. When I was coming up as a DJ and I was playing a lot of parties and stuff, there's a couple of times where I interviewed for a couple of local radio stations. I never
Yeah.
got the job, but like they were hiring guys like me to play like external promotional events and stuff.
Sure.
If you go to like a basketball game and there's a tent with the radio station ID on the
Yep.
on the top of the tent, and then there's some guy behind the turntables that could have been me.
Yeah. And should have been you. I mean, that's what people say. Like, oh, you're a DJ. It's like, no. Like this guy is the DJ. I grab a microphone. It's like, if you can yell into a microphone, if you can yell into a microwave, you got a job in radio. And it's just like, here's this song, click. And the playlist is already chosen for you anyway. Yeah, I can slide songs in if somebody has a request. Sure. But it's like, yeah, it's not quite the same as actually like,
Right.
segueing, on the ones and twos, the wheels of steel and all that. It's not especially not today's current affair of radio.
I mean, it took a long time before I made the transition to actual turntables, but I, still to this day, man, like to this day, being on the radio is like the one part of my career that I never got to tap into. I never got to like pursue that side of things. And so
Sure.
there's part of me that's low key jealous that you're getting to be on the air and like you get to make a living talking into a microphone and stuff, man. Like I think that's really cool.
But that's what people have podcasts for now. It's like, you can't, it's like, it's
a point. Yeah.
a podcast. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I have to be very restricted on what I say. And I have so many clients and so many, local businesses that are holding on to every word. If you say the wrong thing, then you certainly hear, like, they'll tell their boss, and I certainly hear about it. Fortunately, I'm good and safe and everything, but I've heard conversations through the doors. The walls have ears about somebody saying the wrong thing, even though they didn't mean it, but it came across as they took it the wrong. As always, people they only hear what they want to hear, and yeah.
Well, a lot of radio now is pre-edited before it goes out to air, right? Like,
yeah, it almost has to be anymore. It's all what we call voice tracking, where like I'm live in quotes on the air every day, afternoon drive on 92.9 The Bull. You can listen through the app. And
shout out to 92.9 The Bull.
I'll be wherever they want me to be. Most of my experience comes from like doing like top 40 radio back, Justin Timberlake and Justin Bieber back in the day, and whatever, Dua Lipa now. Then I was on a rock station for many years, and they're just like, hey, we need you on the country station. I was like, it's the same thing no matter where I am. Yeah. I never listen to the music anyway. I'm too busy working on what I'm going to do next. I was like, here's this song, and I turned the thing down, and I just kind of have the ear out listening for, every song is going to go verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Right. When you hear the bridge, you have about a minute left. So it's
yeah.
Out of the format, and I like about half the songs on any station I'm on anyway.
Pop music and country music kind of have that in common, where the structure is like 99% the same, rarely does it change.
It's the same genre too, and you can't fool me otherwise. It's the same. I mean, like Darius Rucker is on country stations now, and listen to that. That's Hootie and the Blowfish. It was considered alt rock back then. It's the same style of music. They just call it country now. It's just, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's whatever your lifestyle is when it comes.
I would happily go on a diatribe about how Chris Stapleton is a blues artist, and an incredibly talented one at that. By the way,
sure.
Like
I
actually really love his music, but technically he sells to a country crowd. But man, he's blues. He's blues.
Oh yeah,
I hear more blues than him than not.
There's a lot of crossover. I mean, Jelly Roll's a crossover. Hardy's a crossover. There's so many of that they're on rock stations and they're on country stations. They're like, wait a minute, but like outlaw country and like metal. There's a lot of, and even hip hop too. There's a lot of that, like just outside of the norm, but they're all friends because they're all doing their own thing. It's just, it's cool. And at the end of the day, they're all people. Doesn't matter.
so you got the day job in radio, you got the YouTube thing going on, and when you started your YouTube channel, was the goal to talk about video games always? Was it always like a retro video game focus, or did you just sort of like slide into that over time?
Yeah, like a lot of people with YouTube channels, it started out as, my very first YouTube video was probably, let's see, my oldest is 18. So my first video was probably 16 years ago, because I would post videos on just like a personal YouTube channel to send to my parents, because I didn't have the bandwidth to upload a video in an email or anything like that. But when I started
actually, or whatever,
well, sure. And when I started doing like regular YouTube videos, for a while there, I'll just post a thing and I'll talk about whatever I was nostalgic for. I hold on to nostalgia dearly. So I mean, I'll talk about a video game, or then I'll review my Speak and Spell collection. I mean, just whatever, and breakfast cereals and stuff. It just literally whatever. I mean, just whatever I had. It was all nostalgia for me. But I realized that I started getting more and more traction, more and more hits when I started doing on the video game videos than I would anything else. So then I was like, well, I mean, okay, if I'm getting more views on video game stuff, I better just give the people what they want. I mean, they'll. The people will always, be the final say of quality. So
yeah,
I'll just start doing video game stuff. And I know retro video games. I like the new games too. But again, going back to nostalgia, the good news with doing retro gaming content is the games are already out. I'm not predicting the Switch 2. I'm not predicting what's gonna. I'll leave that for someone else. Someone more qualified. I just want to talk about old video games.
I think you mentioned even you recently did a open cart surgery video with a Batman cartridge for the Famicom.
Oh yeah.
I think you even mentioned in that video that like one of the best things about doing retro games is that they don't change. It's the same game as it was 30 years ago.
It's the reason you come home from work and you put on Labyrinth instead of like Oppenheimer. It's just like you have to like sit down and really invest in a new movie and listen to all the words and why is that guy over there? Oh yeah, this thing happened.
Yeah,
I don't have that kind of stress in my life. I just you just put on something comfortable. It's like what, mac and cheese. And the thing I've seen 1,000 times in a row, I don't even need to look at the screen. I can hear it and I can see it in my mind, So video games are, to me, a lot that way, too, where I can just come home and just play, I don't know, Bubble Bobble or something like that and just mindlessly play it. I'm not like playing it for keeps or for real, or I just play it for the sake of playing it for a little bit,
Yeah, man. I mean, I've watched Scrubs 37 times. I've watched The Office 183 times.
There you go.
I've watched. These are not real numbers, but you know what I mean.
They're pretty close, though. I'm sure.
But it's the same kind of thing where it's like sometimes you want to consume something new, and sometimes you just want something comfortable. And I think there's an audience for both.
Yeah, there is. I agree.
But like when I watch your channel and I hear you talk about these things, I get this really like very vivid picture in my head of, and this might be different for everybody, but for me, it was a cold, kind of rainy Pacific Northwest Saturday morning. I've got a bowl of cereal. I'm watching some cartoons and getting ready to fire up my Nintendo. Oh, yeah. Or my Sega Genesis. Like it was one of those, right? Yeah. And so like I every time we, do a retro gaming expo event, or every time I watch one of your videos, or like every time I sort of think about that time in my life, that's like that vivid image of like there's no soccer practice this morning because it got rained out, so I'm gonna pour myself a bowl of Cocoa Puffs and watch cartoons. Like
love it.
That was I remember very vividly having that memory. Like I must have been younger than 10. I must have been 6, 7, 8 years old. And then it was all downhill from there. Just
Things started rolling in and catching up, and that's and I think so many people have those same memories, but it's the same reason I call out specific like ma and pa stores. We had like the certain local video stores we had. Yeah, we had a Blockbuster. Yeah, we had a Hollywood Video later, but we had ours was Crazy Mike's Video. That was kind of the king to the people who lived there. That was awesome. The cool one. And then there's a couple of other video stores here and there too, but every town had like the good video store and then the kind of whatever video store. And then there's, it was funny. So many people have this huge nostalgia for Blockbuster. And I'm just like, I kind of like went there the least just because it seemed so corporate. I mean, it had a place for a lot of people's hearts for sure. And it was there, and it was down the street from my house, but usually that would kind of be the last place I'd hit up for, something new anyway. But yeah, it's the same as you. Just everyone had those same kind of, the Saturday morning vibes, and that's just kind of that was what we looked forward to. Because before, outside of that, it was, wake up, go to school, come home, eat with the family if that's the thing. Do the dishes if that's the thing. Do homework if that's the thing.
Right.
Some kids didn't play video games during the weekdays. I feel sorry for them, but that's just that was the life it was. And I grew up in the '80s too, so like my earliest memories are I'm the sixth of 7 children. We had one television in the entire house, and what was on was what was on. So I had to
and what was on was not
up.
Nintendo.
No, not with. I mean, it's like the primetime viewing. Watching the Perfect Strangers. I don't know why that popped in my head all of a sudden.
Oh God.
you know,
Balky.
Full House or something like that. I mean, that's, you know, usually just whatever television was on. If my dad happened to be home, my dad worked a bunch. So if he was home, whatever he wanted to watch, that's what we would watch, and he would always watch the nostalgia channel. So for him, it was his youth. So for me, looking back playing video games, for him, he'd come home and watch Laurel and Hardy. He'd watch the Marx Brothers. And that's why I grew up in appreciation with those, because again, we only had one TV growing up. Because why would you have more than, it's like, that would be, you know, especially in the 80s, having more than one TV, that would be like having more than one microwave. Why would you need more than one microwave? You already got a microwave. We only had the one TV until Nintendo. I mean, and so I would wake up. This is a true story. I would literally wake up at like 4 a.m. just to get some video game time in before everyone else woke up.
Oh man!
And then it finally did get to a point, like during the height of my Nintendo-dom. So probably like was it late 80s? It had to have been like 1990, like early 1990. My dad found a used CRT. Of course, it was a CRT. It was 1990, but he found a used television, and that became like the Nintendo television in the other room. So I was like, so then I didn't have to worry about anyone else or anything. It was a beautiful thing.
Was it before or after the Summer of Batman?
It was just after the Summer of Batman. I do remember that.
People are cutting bat symbols into their hair and stuff.
Oh, God, I never got that bad. I liked it. I wasn't a fanatic like my friends were, because my friend, I mean, they went to they would go to like the local trinket store. Ours was called Jolly Joker in the Yakima Mall. No, Jolly Joker was the arcade. Joker's Wild was the store that would have, it was the kind of store that would have flash paper and like itch powder and like the practical jokes and stuff like that, the arrow through the head.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of stores, but they also had we didn't have a Spencer's back then. So this was our kind of early release of Spencer's. So that they would have the official Joker card. If you have this, you were the true Joker. I mean, stuff like that. So they would have just the dumbest stuff. And I had some friends who were hardcore Batman fans for sure. And I thought the movie was okay. I love the NES game though. So
man, I had Batman for the Amiga, and I played the heck out of that.
There we go.
But that's the thing is like, and I kind of mentioned this on my last episode with Hancock. Like, I grew up in an Amiga store, right? So, like, a lot of my video gaming got done on a completely separate computer system with its own monitor, and so I wasn't, taking over the television,
right?
From the family, and then. Later on down the line, I got into Sega Genesis and N64, and there's a whole story there.
Yeah.
But I remember, man, like I remember playing Ninja Turtles. I remember playing Roger Rabbit. Both of those games, Ninja Turtles was very similar to the NES version, but not quite. Okay. Roger Rabbit was very different on the Amiga than it was on the NES. And this is one of those rare cases where I preferred the NES version.
Okay. I like the NES version, so it works out fine. Yeah. I'll have to look at the Amiga version now.
Yeah, the Amiga version of Roger Rabbit had a little bit better graphics, but I didn't like the gameplay as much. I felt like, just for me personally, the NES version was just better gameplay.
All right, I'll check it out.
And it made more sense to me. Like, I couldn't get my head around like what you were supposed to do, or again, I was like sub middle school, so I was very young trying to figure these games out.
Right.
But that was one of the things about like the early days of gaming for me that I kind of grew up in a weird sort of unique position. Not everybody, in fact, nobody in my school like owned a computer store. My dad owned like one of the very few local computer stores in the 80s and early 90s.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so I just got very lucky that I got kind of like introduced to this stuff very early on in my life, and it sort of just became my life up till, I joined up, I hooked up with the Retro Game Expo in 2011 and so on. So, but I want to circle back to something you mentioned. You mentioned your local mom and pop video store. Mine was called American Family Video, I think.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
American Family Video, and it was genius. It was, because I grew up in Oregon City. Hollywood Video and Blockbuster kind of moved in a little bit later, like in the like mid to late 90s.
Yep, that's where mine were. Yeah.
But before that, we had American Family Video, which was in a little like it was like a little 3-space like retail spot that was like on the corner of a couple of major roads that went through my town. And so it was American Family Video. In the middle was Papa Aldo's Pizza, which was later bought out by Papa Murphy's.
Okay.
And became Papa Murphy's. Literally the exact same place, just they changed the name and branding.
Right.
So
just
like
cross out all those and put Murphy's and crayon above it, just,
right. And
I remember already there. So
I remember even as a kid thinking like Murphy, that's not an Italian name, but whatever.
Yeah. True. I never thought about that. Murphy.
But their pizza's great. Like I still eat their pizza to this day. It's good stuff.
Good
But and then the third spot was like a plaid pantry. And so it's like whoever it was that figured out these three stores right next to each other, all just sharing a parking lot. Absolute genius.
It's such a good idea to have them so close in proximity, so you don't have to cross any extra busy streets that you don't have to.
Yeah.
My area I grew up a block away from kind of an outdoor stretch mall, whatever you want to call those, where all the stores are just in a giant parking lot. That was shared by Montgomery Ward. That was my store growing up. All my clothes shopping, it was all Montgomery Ward.
Yeah.
The building is no longer there, unfortunately. But in that complex, there was Crazy Mike's Video. And I say it's local. I mean, it was a chain out of Seattle. There's probably, at one time, maybe there was 8 or 9 locations in the Northwest. I don't know. But it was a Northwest thing. But we had Crazy Mike's, and then on the other side, that's where Blockbuster Video was. So in the same parking lot, you had both video stores. But it was also during a time too, you'll remember that grocery stores had rentals too. So then we had the Safeway, which was our local grocery store, and you could rent video games and movies there too. So there was no lack of places to rent stuff. And I would have to kind of keep track and I only walked. My mom's legally blind, can't drive. My dad was always working, so he was never home. So I took the bus, or I just walked in. Of course, I've always been tall, so I always got a long stride to my my legs where I walk anywhere. So, in my walking distance, we had a few spots on how to kind of keep track of what goes where and who has what, and which place still has NES games, and this place moved on and now they have Super Nintendo and all that. And but yeah, nothing as, and we had a Little Caesars kind of in between there too. So I'm sure they made bank just by nature of being the, oh great, grab a movie, grab a video game, whatever it is, and then grab a pizza and then head on your way. To a wonderful thing.
That was it, man. That was every kid's Friday night was rent a couple movies, rent a video game, pick up a pizza, and then your weekend plans were set, bro.
That's it, dude.
That was, you were busy until Monday.
Well, good news for us too with Little Caesars, because it was pizza was the gimmick. I mean, you couldn't get one pizza there. You had to get 2 pizzas, and that would last you the weekend, hopefully, depending on how many friends you had over, I guess.
$5 or whatever.
Oh my God. That was the best thing ever. I can't eat Little Caesars today, but when I had more of a metabolism, it was a beautiful thing.
I'm getting there myself, man. I'm still technically I'm still in my 30s. Or as I like to tell people on my live streams, I'm in my late 20s.
Very late.
And I'm getting to the point where my relationship with pizza is starting to change, and I'm really bummed about that, man, because pizza was my jam forever and ever and ever. And I would find even when I was dieting or working out a lot, or I would try to find ways to still incorporate diet versions of pizza into my diet, just because I love pizza that much. And
it's all in the crust. It says the crust is too thick. I mean, the more when I started traveling more and going to places like New York, New Jersey, St. Louis, even the older I get, the more thin I like the crust. So I think
for me it's the cheese. It's starting to it's the lactose stuff starting to catch up to me, because I was never lactose intolerant.
Right.
So this is new for me.
You proved that wrong.
But
damn it, Papa Murphy's.
we all get there eventually, right?
Something will happen along the way where I'll just surprise, I'm allergic to shrimp now, or something like that. Yeah, what didn't always used to be that way, but yeah, I'm that way with most. I would say most popular pizza, and I say Little Caesars, but also I would include Domino's and Pizza Hut, where it tastes good up front, but then afterwards I just feel depressed. My whole body is just okay, you're going to pay for this now. So it's I can't even move afterwards.
You know what the problem is? You need to be renting more video games.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, but we don't have. Give it time. With all the streaming services and cloud services and things going digital, and then
Yeah.
and then just all the movies and all the streaming services are now like, hey, you're going to pay extra and we're going to show ads.
Oh,
I wouldn't be surprised if we see more ma and pa video stores open back up, a little bit more niche, a little bit more in like eclectic neighborhoods. Maybe more emphasis on the indie stuff, like indie movies, and even VHS or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised to see more local video stores pop up here in the near future. We'll see.
folks, I want to thank you again for hanging out and listening to my interview with John Riggs here on the Pick Up and Play podcast. I think this episode especially is evidence of how great it can be when you've known someone for a long time and they have a certain level of trust in you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this episode was nearly 2 hours long by the time I was done recording. And so I'm only putting a little over half of it up on YouTube, and the entire thing will be available on Patreon for the folks over there. And John is just one of those people that, once we get to talking, it's like, we have just so much to talk about. We could hang out for hours. It's like just an old friend that you haven't seen in a long time. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mentioned on the first episode that I hope people are listening to this while they're playing video games. I hope the same for you. This really is the kind of talk show that I would hope someone would put on and listen to while they're playing something fun, because that's how I used to listen to podcasts when I first started sort of getting invested in the world of podcasting in the late 2000s. Having said all of that, I still don't have any sponsors yet. We are looking forward to working with folks in the near future. So that's what this is. This is called a mid-roll, and this is normally where a mid-roll sponsor ad might go. But I do need to say a big thank you again to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, who is partnering with me on this show. And of course, you can find the Portland Retro Gaming Expo on the social platforms or at retrogamingexpo.com and find out more about what we've got planned coming up for the Retro Gaming Expo in 2024. It's going to be in September this year, and it's shaping up to be a really good one. They're already working on all kinds of things for the show this year. They're getting a jump on the planning, and I'm really excited for this year. So make sure you check out retrogamingexpo.com. In the meantime, I'm going to get back to my interview with John Riggs, and I will check back in with you at the end of the episode. So my record shelves are a mess.
Oh, I see them. Oh yeah, they're great.
I still have 200 records sitting in the crates from the Retro Game Expo that I have not unpacked.
Oh,
so my shelves are just a shit show right now.
Okay.
But one of the things that I started buying more records in the mid 2010s because of the Retro Gaming Expo, and I wanted to bring more authentic vinyl feel to the presentation for that show.
You're right.
And then I was doing Cowlitz Gamers for Kids in the spring, and that was also very much a retro gaming
Very much so,
vibe.
yeah.
And I was bringing the turntables to that, so I wanted to play records for that,
Right.
and so I just started buying secondhand records, used records, whatever. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I started trying to buy more like new vinyl, and started really trying to beef up, certain like areas of my vinyl collection. And vinyl sales in 2020, I read this somewhere, and forgive me if the number's not 100% accurate, but
okay,
if I recall correctly, vinyl sales in 2020 jumped 1,100%.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah,
1,100% in 2020 during the pandemic. Everybody just started buying all of the records, and it was not, and it was made worse by the fact that there was only 2 places in the world that were making the nickel metal plates that they use to press those records. Because in order to work with nickel, you have to use really harsh caustic chemicals that you have to get special licenses, and you have to have a special facility to be able to handle those chemicals for environmental reasons and all this stuff.
Right.
Only 2 places in the world making these plates. One was a plant in California. One was a guy's garage in Japan.
Nice. I love it. I love stories like
And
that.
the plant in California burned down
Oh no.
in the summer of 2020. And so from, all during the pandemic, the only place that these pressing plants could get these plates was from this guy's garage in Japan, right?
It's crazy.
And so, first of all, talk about a monopoly. Like this guy,
I know, God.
and nobody could compete with him because nobody could get the environmental approval, the EPA approval to stand up a new plant anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And California was on fire all summer that year. So like it was a nightmare.
That's right.
If the vinyl industry can make a comeback, if cassette tapes can make a comeback, they're up something like 600% in the last 2 years.
I was going to say, wasn't it around that same time that they said that vinyl outsold the compact disc for music?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just came back. It's like,
I think that happened in 2018 or 19. I think
okay,
that
yeah.
happened.
I was going to say it
happened
had to have
before
been
the
maybe a little
pandemic.
bit before that,
But it was, all during the 2010s, vinyl was making a really big comeback. And then 2020 hit, everybody was stuck at home and everybody decided to start buying records.
Yep.
And so it made my life worse. But
sorry.
but
well,
but I see the physical video games making a comeback. I think Nintendo's going to hang on to that by this, by the fingertips, and they're just going to drag the physical video game media continue to drag it into the 21st century. People like, HBO Max, they're deleting stuff.
Oh yeah.
PlayStation is deleting stuff. People are paying for stuff and then having it taken away from them, and they're learning sort of the hard way that like when you buy digital, you don't own it.
Right.
And I think that's frustrating a lot of folks.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw, I forgot who it was I was talking to, who was like a VHS collector, and that was like the first one I heard. It was like, you're collecting VHS, really? I was like, because isn't that going to degrade and fall apart? That's always what I've heard. But then, I mean, the simple comeback of just, well, they have some things on video that they don't have on DVD. I was like, oh my God, you're right. Yeah. All these things that have just never been transferred over, never going to. I mean, yeah, you could do it now. I mean, if you have the VHS, you can copy it over, whatever. But
sure,
yeah,
but it's a lot of stuff never got released,
and they're realizing that now, and that's when now that we're older and we have a disposable income and we can just go out and buy all the Christmas presents that we never had as a kid to compensate for who knows what. You're going to see, unfortunately or fortunately, good news for us. More and more people hitting up, not just video game expos, but I mean, like I see piles of stuff at Comic Cons. Those are my favorite things to find. I like the most well-organized booth at the convention is the one I don't want to go to the most, because they know that it's all nice and clean. Give me that person who has a pile of stuff on a blanket. Give me the one who like, I haven't looked at it before. You open up the box and there's like a moth that flies out and dust comes up and like the ghosts from the Ark of the Covenant start flying around. I mean, give me that old school musky. I mean, you're going to find some gold in there. And that's what I look for the most at any convention. I love it. And you're going to find something that doesn't even exist anymore.
Or grumpy dude that can't be bothered with eBay. I'm not looking up the prices. The price is what it is,
Oh my God. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, if I have to ask how much something is and they look on eBay or something like that, I'm already not interested. But yeah, give me you'll see that we don't have a whole here in the Northwest. We don't have a huge like flea market scene as you would find in a California or in a Texas, it's unfortunate. There's a few here Midwest. And there, but yeah, I know it's rough. But there's people out there who know what they're looking for. So and you'll find it too. I mean, we still hear about new prototypes of NES games being discovered, or like, oh my God, here's the long lost thing that was on TV once and nobody kept it, and now we can encode it and put it on YouTube for free or something like that. You never know what you're gonna find. But and that's why they call it lost media. You never know.
The giant G4 controller that showed up at the expo.
Oh my God, it was such a dream to see that in real life, and the fact that it actually worked. I mean, it worked better day one before people started playing with it.
Sure, yeah.
The fact that it was actually usable. Oh my God, it was so fun to see. Or even just Blockbuster showing up. I know we were kind of knocking on Blockbuster earlier, but Blockbuster showing up because there is a legit Blockbuster. So. You never know what you're going to find, especially at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. You're going to find something new every single year. I didn't know the Coleco Chameleon was going to be there as part of the Jaguar display, but here we are.
I didn't get to see that.
Oh, in the
I missed that one.
Video Game History Foundation always brings in this huge museum. It's like, and John Hancock always helps with that too. Like, here's every Nintendo game, here's what every 64 game looks like all at once. It's really cool to see. They brought the entire Jaguar, like Atari Jaguar, the CD, all the games. And then as part of Atari and Jaguar, they also had the Coleco Chameleon, which was, the fabled next Coleco system, which was literally just on a Jaguar shell. But yeah, it was cool to see,
On our last episode with Hancock, I told the story about it was like a Sunday morning, and I snuck into the room with his Genesis collection, and it was it was just me and the games, and I snapped a quick photo.
Yeah, and you're a Genesis guy too.
Yeah, well, yeah. After the Amiga, my first real video game console was the Genesis. I got into the Nintendo stuff like later, and I had friends that had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, so like I got my hands on it whenever I could, but. The Genesis, it was me and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for a long time. Like, I played the heck out of that game.
Good call.
But man, that that nostalgic feeling, that draw for the things that we remember from our childhood. What do you think it is that drives that in the current generation of adults, like yourself, like me? Folks that came up 80s and 90s that are now adults with adult money, maybe don't have all the time in the world, but like when we do have time for ourselves, we want to make sure that we squeeze every ounce we can out of it. So like, what do you think it is that drives that nostalgia industry that we're a part of?
I don't know. It's a time machine. You can whisk yourself back to a time when you would go and rent, the game next door to the pizza place, which was next door to the Plaid Pantry. And, if I can find that, I mean, it's the best scene I think I've seen in any film cinema ever is near the end of Ratatouille, when the movie critic, like when the food critic takes a bite of the food and he gets whisked back to like when he scraped his knee and his mom fed him this thing that he's eating now. Yeah. If you can find that, it's just you're whisked to a time. You're not pulling yourself away from your life. You're not pulling yourself away from your wife and your kids and your job and your bills and responsibilities and all that. Right. But when you're a kid, it was nice that you could wake up and not say, oh, my car is having problems, or that kind of mentality. It's such a. There are people who think this every day, and it's so unfortunate. But there are people who wake up and go to work every day and say, well, today's the day I get fired. And then they don't get fired. And they're like, okay, well, I guess I have another job for another day. It's like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine living my life like that, So it's just,
I've been that guy.
Yeah,
I've been
exactly.
Yeah.
We've all been that guy. So you just, you find these video games and you find these things you can hold on to. And if it just makes you, you can just pop in something really quick, and you don't have to play it even for very long. Like I said, it does. Even if I just pop in, something like a Bubble Bobble for a little bit, or Ninja Gaiden, or Batman. We talked about that earlier. Just to kind of like decompress and remember and just like, okay, yeah, this is, like I've been here before. It's good for the soul. It just kind of makes you smile out loud, I think.
In fact, I've been that guy fairly recently. So,
shoot. Okay, sorry to bring it up.
That's part of the no. That's part of the reason why I decided to start a podcast. And if you want to go to patreon.com/DJ Switch PDX, you can see extra bonus content.
Will this bonus content get you fired? I mean, that's what I want to know. So,
can't get fired if you don't have a job.
Okay.
No, I want this to be the job, man. I honestly, I've been chasing the content creator thing for a long time, and I think I finally have something with this podcast and all of the plans that I have to sort of build around it. Right. I told myself in 2020 when the pandemic hit that I wasn't going to go back to full-time DJing, because I already had 1 foot out of the nightclub life. Like, I was never really that into it to begin with. It just was where the work was.
It's where the money was. That was me working in radio. Yeah. I'm still in radio, but doing the after stuff. Like we would do live broadcast at bars and clubs, which is totally not me and totally not my scene. But that was my job, So
yep.
You just do it and collect a paycheck and be like, well, all right.
I think that's why you and I get along so well, is because we are very similar in that way. Like left to my own devices on a Saturday night, I would, like, if you gave me a choice between nightclub or sitting at home with an Xbox and no pants on, like the Xbox wins 100 out of 100 times. Like,
I hear
hands
you.
down.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but that's part of the whole, like, part of this whole thing now is that, I don't want to go back to the nightclub life. I have just no interest in it. And I think that thanks to the internet and thanks to a lot of the new opportunities just in the last year, like there's still growing a lot of opportunities for small creators now. And you know, if you told me a year ago that I was going to be hosting a podcast on YouTube and then have like extended versions of that podcast behind a paywall on Patreon, like the Patreon existed, but a lot of the digital services that they offer now for creators weren't even introduced until November of 23.
Right.
YouTube didn't really expand their podcasting stuff until like March of 23.
Just recently,
and,
right?
Yeah, it's all very, very new stuff. And I'm only sort of like recently found all of these tools and infrastructures that didn't exist when I hosted my first podcast in 2009.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been podcasting a long time. And I'm finally like, I'm really, really excited about like where this show could go and what kinds of doors I could potentially open depending on who I interview and how many folks decide that they enjoy this kind of thing. And so, you know, I didn't mean to turn this into like a whole plug for myself, but I will say, like, if you're enjoying,
they're already listening, they're already watching. You already got me.
Right.
They're already here.
But if you're listening,
now you need
and you're
a record to
enjoying this
sell
thing,
or a book to sell or something, you know.
Right. Yeah.
The hat. Maybe you can get the switch, you know, on this.
Oh no, we need to talk about your merch here in a second.
Okay.
But I will say, like, if you're listening to this and enjoying this, please make sure you leave a comment. Please make sure that you engage in some sort of way. I mean, everybody says hit the like button, make sure you subscribe. Like, yes, those things are really, really great, and thank you for doing those of you that have. But like, please make sure you leave a comment and be a part of the conversation as well, because like that's the whole thing about doing this the way that I'm doing this. Is that I want to be able to talk to folks like you, Riggs, that, you know, are personalities within this scene that I've been a part of for over a decade, but also I want to be able to use it as a vehicle to talk with people who don't have YouTube channels and people who aren't necessarily public personalities, but still want to be a part of the conversation. And this, so far, this has been the best way that I've found to be able to facilitate both of those things at once.
Right. No, it's a good way to look at it too. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, we need to talk about your merch because, my dude, so in preparation for this, obviously I was watching a lot of your recent videos.
Okay.
You've got this incredible hat.
Thank you.
Yeah, the whole classic Zelda vibe is like really, really dope.
Yeah, and it started out, this is a true story. This started out as a gift.
Really?
Just somebody who watched the channel and reached out to me blindly, randomly through an email, said, "Hey, I have a hat I want to send you." And I was like, okay, I don't know, because I've had people say that before, like shirts, and they're like, "Hey, I just sent you a shirt." I was like, "You understand? I'm a big dude. I'm like, I'm you know, I wear a 2X, but I have to buy a 3X for length."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. Just here's a shirt." I didn't know. I didn't know what I was getting, and this was the hat, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. This is actually really, really cool. Thanks." You're
6'5", is that right?
6'5", yeah, 6'5", yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you know,
I was gonna say,
like,
you're a pretty tall dude to yourself too, you know.
I'm like 6'3 3/4", and I'm still not quite looking you in the eye, man. You're tall.
But with the hat, I started wearing it in videos, and then people are like, "Oh, you know, where can I buy the hat? Where can I buy the hat?" So I reached out to him saying, "Hey, look, I know that hat was a gift, but can I make more?" And as it turns out, the guy who made it happens to work for I forgot what he used a word that wasn't just embroidery shop, but it was a place that does embroidery, screen printing, all these other things, and will design logos and make logos. So it's more like custom branding and can also give you the thing.
Custom
so since
textiles.
the logo was already made, the logo was already made. So he was just like, "Oh yeah, I mean, you can just, I mean, the hats come in for some reason in sets of 12." So I just bought.
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, I'll buy some hats. So last year, or the previous year rather, we're in 2024 now. In 2022, I had them make me a bunch of these hats just for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Put them on my table, and they sold out in the first day. I was like, oh shoot, okay, well, I mean, and seriously, it has my name on it, so it's like, why would anyone want to wear a hat unless their last name was Riggs, which is legit my last name? Why? It doesn't make any sense to me. But again, it's what people are asking for. So I reached out to him again recently, saying, "Hey, remember those hats? Can you make me some more of those?" And I have an online store now, so I can still bring them to conventions, but now people can buy them online too. And that's the dumbest story you'll hear all day. But yeah, the hat that started out as a gift, and he's totally aware. He's just like, "Oh, you do whatever you want to do with it." He's like, you're charging too less. You got to charge more. I was like, I'm not charging $50 for a hat. So
No.
I'm not that important. I promise. I'll at least sell it enough to pay for the hats. How about that? And then the rest is advertising.
Sure. Yeah, no, that, I mean, well, and you got fans, man. Like,
yeah,
that's, you don't get a silver play button on YouTube by accident. People come through and they want to hang out with you and they want to buy your hat. And
yeah. What's funny?
And then apparently they also want to buy these air fresheners.
Oh, the best. That's my new passion of all things. I would have never thunk. I actually have some right here. Hold on. I got.
Tell me everything about these air fresheners, because and I mean this
the history of, or just how
I mean this in the most respectful and professional way possible.
Okay.
This is batshit crazy. What are you doing with these air fresheners?
It started out as something I heard from someone else in the UK. I was in the UK last year. And
okay.
he said, just for fun, for this little collector's edition thing, we made these. And so I give him all the credit in the world. His name's Dan, wonderful guy, runs Wave Studios. They do homebrews for Dreamcast mostly. My homebrew game, Yeah Beavis 2, is on Dreamcast thanks to Dan. Out in the world, it was originally from someone else, but then he was like, "Oh wait, you do Dreamcast games? I'll publish those for you." Perfect. And so he just said it as a throwaway. Oh, just for fun, we did this air freshener that was supposed to smell like an arcade, but they didn't have like this, that, and the other, like an arcade. And I was just like, "Tell me more." That's the best idea I've ever heard, and I never thought it takes one of those things. It's like the Bernie Bot's every flavor jelly bean. Well, of course you can make a jelly bean that tastes like diapers, but why would you? Because you can. So when he told me what his arcade smelled like, because he's like, well, but they didn't have exactly what we were looking for, so we just chose. No. I think he said like ozone, whatever that means, so like rain, I guess, I don't know, and whatever flavors they had to choose from. I was like, interesting. Yeah. So the good news is I learned this from someone. There's I have a pseudo mentor of mine who made $1 million selling the dumbest stuff ever on Etsy and Amazon. That's where it all comes from. It says, I mean, literally selling physical Bitcoin that they look like Bitcoins, like the Bitcoin. Yeah. And they sell those and I mean, it's just the dumbest stuff ever, but people buy it. That's what always comes down to. And so I just talking to her a little bit about that. I was just like, well, maybe this, maybe that. So if something, and that was the thing that she mentioned was, if it exists in the world, it can be made. If it exists, somebody can make it. So I found a company that can manufacture air fresheners just for me, which is beautiful. So I literally have taking his idea, but making it my own, because I know what my own arcade smelled like. Right. I have these arcade scented air fresheners that smell like menthol cigarettes. It smells like smells like a rusty gumball machine. It smells like spilled stale Coke, and it smells like wood paneling, because that's what an arcade in the 80s to me. And it had to be menthol. And the true story is I chose menthol cigarettes because I wanted something really like acidic almost, but they didn't have cigarette smoke. No, I probably could have used smoke flavoring like Burger King uses in their burgers. Maybe. And again, you have to force the nostalgia, but they did have enough combination of things where it's like, okay, that kind of smells like menthols. So perfect. And people love them. And the nice thing about these is, again, and people who know my channel or know me, outside of my channel or whatever, I make my own home brews. I make my own Nintendo games, stuff like that too. And people come up to my table, like at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, they'll come up and say hi, and they'll be, oh, this is really cool. I love these Nintendo games. I don't have a Nintendo to play them on. All right, thanks. And they leave. I was like, well, which is totally fine. I don't mind at all. No one ever has to buy anything from me. I have that option.
Yeah.
But these, you don't need a Nintendo to play them in. They're just these dumb air fresheners that I sell at conventions. I sell them online too. I have an online store. So I only have 4 of them on me right now, and I have about 6 more on the way, and then like 8 more in pre-production. Okay. Because I was like, oh wait, like as soon as I made this one and people started buying it, I was like, okay, I can make more. Now, this is another true story that I'm unveiling on this time. I have this one that smells like a high school cafeteria. My high school cafeteria was like freshly, like the bread rolls. So it's like really yeasty bread. And they would, for some reason, there would always be this pile of fruit that they would scoop with their hand. They had a gloved hand, put it on the thing. And then also had like the lightest gloves. The lightest hint of Axe body spray, because that's my high school cafeteria. So I didn't mean to say that as you were drinking. I apologize. I don't want to get that on your mic.
No, we're
Nice
good. We're good.
microphone.
We're good.
So it just became one of those things where it's like, we're talking about nostalgia. We're talking about, going back in the past. We're talking about, playing these old games, what it was like. Maybe you try something, or you smell something, or you taste something. It's like, oh, that tastes just like that pizza next door to that joint that you were just talking about earlier. I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan. I can't call it Twin Peaks, but I have this one that smells like cherry pie and damn fine coffee. So again, not so bad. So that's an homage to Twin Peaks, again, filmed here in the Northwest. That's a pretty good one. And then what could be, I mean, the arcade one's my baby.
Right.
But which one could be the best one once people smell them? And again, I have some more on the way. Come Portland Retro Gaming Expo 2024, I should have like 10 to 12 of them that you can choose from now, including the arcade one. This one smells like your grandma's purse. Now, and grandma's purse had everything you ever needed in it, just for you. So this one smells, it's like a kind of like a faux leather purse with her rosewater perfume and mint gum, because she always had gum in her purse for some reason.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this one is the one that people, when there's like that actually literally smells like my grandma's purse. And it takes them back to that time when they were 6 years old at the mall. It's just for fun. And I have, like I said, I have other nostalgic scents on the way too. But it's just it's been a for fun thing. Making video games is great. Making Nintendo games is great. But also the price of parts, the price of circuit boards, the price of all those chips and everything adds up. And from a business standpoint, yes, I can make them. Yes, I can sell them. It's kind of the thing I'm known for. But it's also fun to make these too. And so I've been having fun making these. Super expensive up front to start up, but once you make them, then you can make a bunch of them. And it becomes one of those things. I'm terrible with numbers. I'm terrible with bookkeeping. But it becomes one of those things where it's like, okay, if I have all these of them, if I sell 100 of them, I'll make my money back. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll sell 100 of them. It becomes funny. One of those things after a while.
As soon as you said like smells like an arcade, obviously, like I immediately had this memory pop into my brain.
Oh yeah.
And I immediately smelled dusty CRTs and feet and wet carpet and like just it. And I had an arcade, my childhood arcade growing up. I have a little sister who's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
And she got into ice skating when she was a little kid. And so every Saturday morning, we would take my little sister to her ice skating lessons, and I would get a $5 bill from my mom and then go disappear to the arcade for an hour.
There you go.
At the mall. And so, I vividly remember like watching like the high school kids just clobber each other on the Mortal Kombat machine and thinking to myself, I'll never be that good, or whatever. And, or watching or looking at the claw machines going, well, I've only got so many quarters, and I know I'm probably not going to win anything on these, so I better keep moving. I usually ended up on like the WrestleMania machine or the NBA Jam machine.
Yeah, safe bet. That's the way I looked at it. Yeah.
but that was I have those really vivid memories of like what my arcade smelled like and stuff, and obviously it's a little different than yours, but like
and every arcade that's funny. And that's kind of what I did this one on. My personal arcade in our Yakima Mall, we had a few arcades growing up in the 80s that were not just in the back of the pizza joint or something like that,
right?
But my personal arcade in our Yakima Mall was right across. It was near a Mrs. Fields, so my arcade smelled like chocolate chip cookies.
Oh no!
So it wasn't exactly the same, but we did have another arcade that was totally just it just did that. And other people for the most part, people kind of smell it. They're like, okay, and it smells a little different every time you smell it too. But it's nice because it became that thing where we're talking about that, making the switch hats, or if you have like a microphone cover or something like that. You talk about YouTube and doing these videos on YouTube and stuff too. All the annoying ads that pop up. Well, I mean, that's such a small piece of the puzzle when it comes to actually getting money on YouTube. So it's just like being in a band. It's like, the bands are always on tour. They're making money off the merch, not by playing in front of an audience. That goes to the promoter. Yeah. If you want to support, if you want to support your local artist, you'll buy the shirt or buy the CD or buy the vinyl, I guess, in this case. Right. So I was just like, I can make these little things that are just for fun. And that's, selling these things is what allows me to, fly around the country or in UK now. and have fun doing that too. And you'd fit right in the UK too, because it was my first time ever in the UK last year. I went to a convention there, and I'm so stuck in the United States where everything was Nintendo. They were the kings. Nintendo runs like fourth in the UK.
Really?
Like, everything there was Amiga, Mega Drive, our Genesis.
What?
Like Spectrum ZX, it was and there was like Nintendo stuff there too. So Nintendo, not bad.
Huh.
But yeah, everyone is there. Grew up on these classic, and that's why when you see like when you play a game for the Super Nintendo, you're playing something like Jelly Boy or what's it? Like on the Sega Genesis, you're playing James Pond. Who hadn't played James Pond, right? it just looks and feels European, and you can't explain it. You're just like, this game was made in Europe, and it's because the cell shading and the sound emulated what they were doing on these Amiga computers that they had in the UK. So, going there, I didn't sell a lot of Nintendo stuff at all, but the other stuff did all right. So,
I had James Pond 2 Robocod for the Amiga.
That's the best. Oh, for the Amiga, wow.
For the Amiga, yeah.
I had it for Genesis, but
I played it on the Amiga, and the idea of taking a fish who's already crossed over with James Bond.
Right.
And for the sequel,
for some reason,
what are we going to do with him for the sequel? Well, let's turn him into RoboCop for no reason.
Right. Why not?
So he's a crime fighting super spy fish that somehow got turned into RoboCop because why not?
Yeah, such a good. I love that. That's one of those games I'm nostalgic for. I do like it's that one specifically, not the other ones, but yeah, James Pond 2 RoboCod. I remember renting that one at Crazy Mike's Video, and it took me through the weekend, but I was able to beat it. Our video store was like, you could have new releases overnight, and then like the 99-cent rentals or however much they went for, maybe they're like $1.99 or something. Yeah. I think those were 5-day rentals, but video games were always 2-day rentals. So you would have it, and then you'd have to return it the next day before midnight or whatever. So James Pond RoboCod took me that weekend, and man, I've looked at it a couple of times since then, but I haven't beaten it since then. So maybe that'll be it's in our ongoing backlogs of like,
if I see a RoboCod video show up on the channel, on your YouTube channel, I guess I'll know where that comes from.
I've talked about it a few times when I talk about Genesis games, but yeah, it's I don't know if you'll see one specifically for. I'll let someone in the UK handle the James Pond history or something. Maybe that'll be the next thing at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. It'll be the year of the James Pond, and it'll just be all the James Pond, the cosplayers and I don't know, probably not so much.
You know what's so crazy? So getting back to the air freshener thing, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
What's crazy to me about that is you mentioned that you had an arcade in your town that was right next to a Mrs. Field, so it always smells like cookies.
Right.
Which honestly, like, I'm super jealous of. Like, I would love to play video games and just have the whole place smell like warm cookies.
Especially in the 1980s, it was either that or cigarette smoke. So I'll take cookies. I'll take chocolate chip cookies any day.
Yeah, exactly. But it triggered another memory for me. Like, I remember my arcade growing up was so it was in a mall. It was in the mall food court, and it was so like the way the mall that my hometown mall was built. I don't know if you're familiar with the Clackamas Town Center, but it was remodeled at some point in the like late 90s, early 2000s, and they did away with the ice skating rink. It must have been the mid 2000s because I worked at that ice rink in the summer of 2000. So
they also had an ice rink. Yeah,
so they had an ice rink, and then
I know Lloyd's does, but interesting.
Yeah. So, in fact, we used to play against them in the local hockey league. Because I played hockey later, but
you see Tanya Harding out there?
Yeah, she would come through every now and then. The ice rink was actually owned by what was her name? Dorothy Hamill.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, cool. Nice.
I think that was who owned the ice rink for a while.
Yeah, the other ice center. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so she so that ice rink was like, like central to the main part of the mall. And then the food court was like, there was like stairs, and then the upper level was the food court, like around the ice rink. So it was a big ring of food retailers. And then in one corner was the Arby's next to the arcade. And so my arcade actually smelled like curly fries.
Oh, well, that's not the worst thing ever.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about that until you mentioned the cookies thing, because I was like, oh man, I wish my arcade smelled like cookies when I was a kid. And then I was like, wait, my arcade smelled like curly fries.
Oh, that's great.
It was literally right next to an Arby's.
Yeah, and not just curly fries, but Arby's curly fries. It's the best thing on the menu. So
yeah, they were in a food group of their own, man. Curly fries were like,
for the longest time, that was the only place I could get curly fries was Arby's. It never existed outside of that. So
Arby's curly fries in the 90s was a whole meal in and of itself. Like I could just get a large curly fry and I'd be set for a while.
Man, yeah. You get that one perfect. That's just like that perfect curl, that Shirley Temple one. Ooh, that's the best one. Just that tube.
And they don't need like you could dip them if you want to, but if you don't have dip, it's not the end of the world because they're still good on their own too.
That's right. Perfectly seasoned.
So the last thing I wanted to talk with you about, and I know we're gonna go long.
We're both a couple of talkers, so we're fine. Yeah. Take as much time as you do.
But the last thing I wanted to talk to you about before we wrap things up. So I mentioned earlier about your breakfast cereal thing, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I know you're a big fan of breakfast cereal. You've got a book even that you wrote.
I did.
About breakfast cereal. So tell me a little bit about how you sort of like ended up stumbling into that role within the scene. Like how did you become the breakfast cereal guy?
It started, it wasn't even a lifelong thing. It was just like you're talking about earlier in this podcast, where you'd wake up, your Saturday mornings were wake up, have a bowl of cereal, because you wouldn't have to wake up your parents to anything to cook you anything. You could make your own cereal. Pour your own cereal. So you do that. You'd watch your cartoons, whatever your lineup was, and then when you were done with your lineup, then you'd play video games for the rest of the day. And that was an integral part of everyone's Saturday growing up. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
And it was, and I grew up from the time in the '80s where they had all the licensed cereals, the Smurf Berry Crunch, the Strawberry Shortcake, all the other cereals along the way. And that was about it. And we'd have the other stuff too, like the Raisin Bran, the usual stuff, Frosted Flakes, whatever. It doesn't matter. Wheaties, sure. I literally have
Cocoa Puffs, Fruit Loops.
Go back to Cocoa Puffs. There you go.
Right.
That's just the way it was. And then around high school or so, I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, if I eat cereal, that means I have to wake up even earlier. So as a high school kid, I was just like, I'm gonna sacrifice eating in the morning just so I can sleep in an extra 15 minutes or whatever it was, So I got, not that I never really got out of it, but I just didn't eat cereal. And then again, so that's like early 80s. Fast forward through high school. After high school, I worked in retail for a while. I went to college for a couple of years, met my girlfriend, became my wife. We had 3 children together. And then it wasn't until I had my own children walking down the cereal aisle. And that's when the flood of nostalgia hit me, where I was walking down the cereal aisle. Again,
really?
Even when we were married and it was just the two of us, or, when we had little children or whatever, we would usually have something. And usually the something that we would have are the basics. It would be the Apple Jacks. It would be the Frosted Flakes. It'd be Frosted Mini Wheats. Just something, just
all
something.
Solid choices. Like
all solid choices. They're safe. Nothing fun. Nothing. I mean, they're just, Honey Nut Cheerios. It's just the basics that they've been around for a million years. They'll be around for a million years longer.
When I tell you my father ate Honey Nut Cheerios for breakfast almost every morning for like 60 years.
Not kidding.
That was it. He had a bowl.
It's one of the best.
He had a specific bowl he would use, and he was just absorbed in the world of Honey Nut Cheerios. That was his go-to breakfast every morning. Unless like my mom was like making pancakes or something, like he would have that. But
top of my refrigerator, and I'm literally in my kitchen right now. It's where I film all my videos. I know we have Honey Nut Cheerios. Oh, I see Honey Nut Cheerios. Okay. Nice. I do not need to prove this to you, but we have.
Bring it on. Come on, man. Why not?
Bunch of Honey Nut Cheerios right here.
Let's go.
They have. Hold on.
The hard, healthy choice.
I'm only showing this to you because this is a preview. By the time this podcast comes out, maybe it'll be on store shelves already. They have the minis now that are like the smaller versions of cereal. So there's Trix minis, Cocoa Puffs minis. It's really, really tiny, like ball bearing sized.
Are we getting a world exclusive right now?
No. This is already out. You can buy this in stores right now. But they're doing a mini version, smaller Honey Nut Cheerios. That's coming soon.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So look out for it.
Wow. So that's the new trend? Or they're gonna start doing mini versions of cereal?
They have a few of them. There's like a Reese's Puffs minis and stuff like that.
Huh.
But the nostalgia comes from going down the cereal aisle with my kids. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that cereal. That one's new. Wait, what happened to that one? And then that's when I started thinking about, oh, whatever happened to Smurf Berry Crunch? Whatever happened to this? Whatever happened to that? And then it's just the same with video games. Sometimes people are just like, oh, you know,
Man.
I grew up playing Sega Genesis. I grew up playing, I grew up playing 64, but then went to college and joined the force and did my thing. And I just kind of got out of it for a while. And then they kind of get back into it and like, oh, hey, whatever happened to, maybe they're playing something on PlayStation 5 and it reminds them of GoldenEye. It's like, oh, whatever happened to Gold? Yeah. Then they go back to the 60, so stuff like that where it just came back. And I was like, wait, I'm as nostalgic for cereal as I am video games. Like all those memories and all the boxes and, according to my mom, the first words I could ever read were free inside. I could find a cereal box and I knew there was a prize inside of it. It said free inside. I mean, I was that obsessed. So,
Yeah.
so I got it. Just like there's VHS collectors and video game collectors. I got into there's more than me out there, but there's people who collect old, nostalgic cereal boxes. So
Yeah.
I have a bit of a collection. And then a friend of mine has a collection way bigger than mine. And I was like, oh man, we should go in together and, write a book on breakfast, like a coffee table style book of just, like basically just here's what the cereal box looks like, and I can talk about it a little bit because I remember trying them all just through nostalgia.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take pictures of all the boxes you don't have, and you just credit me. You can just sell the book. I'm not, he was busy doing his own stuff because he has a real job. So, and that became writing a book about breakfast cereal. It was one of those pandemic projects. I'm sitting around anyway. I was like, well, and I'm a broadcast journalist. I can type all day. I can write. I can talk. So I just, I think I wrote the entire book in probably one weekend, and then I just got all the boxes together. And then I had a friend of mine, do the layout and all that. And now I have this book. It's right. It's literally right here. I wasn't planning on it. Sometimes I just have it within reach. But nostalgia O's, yay! But you're talking about
That title's amazing.
oh, thank you. It came to me in a dream, but yeah, like the old the Nintendo cereal system, stuff like that. So mostly it's just the boxes. It's when you look through it and you're like, oh yeah, I remember
Nickelodeon slime cereal,
yeah.
man.
Oh, that's right. Strawberry shortcake, sprinkle spangles, and stuff.
Oh,
like
wow.
that too. And I don't know. It just became one of those, and I love importing cereal from around the world too. I love importing stuff. So it's like what cereal looks like in Chile or Brazil, or you learn things like. In Chile, you can't have cartoon mascots. Just like here in the U.S., you can't have Joe Camel advertising cigarettes.
Right.
There, you can't have cartoon mascots promoting sugary cereals. So you can have Trix. You can have Trix, but you can't have the Trix rabbit on the box.
Wow, interesting.
So stuff like that. So I don't know. It's fun to find. Like in Germany, they have a Nutella Toast Crunch. Could you imagine if they had a Nutella Toast Crunch here in the U.S.? It'd be a top seller. But I don't know. It just became a fun thing.
This is going to be a shock to absolutely no one who knows me. But I'm a bit of a Ghostbusters fan.
Okay.
And
it's in here.
there was the Real Ghostbusters cereal that really kind of like, I mean, I was obsessed with the Real Ghostbusters cartoon when I was like a little kid.
Oh,
I used to plan my naps around it before preschool and stuff.
If you watch the Real Ghostbusters cartoon today, the writing is brilliant. Every single episode could be its own comic or something. I mean,
it really holds up.
It's its own graphic novel. It holds up very well.
It's crazy how well that show
the
holds
stories
up.
It's so creative.
And the cast is like, it was like before they were all famous, but the whole cast is just monster heavy hitter actors and comedy personalities from the time that it was like before they all got really, really big. You've got guys like Dave Coulier playing, and Maurice LaMarche, who, like, if you don't know who Maurice LaMarche is,
oh my god,
the brain,
he's in everything you've seen. You just don't know who he is.
yeah. He and check out, Google Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson and get ready for like an entire afternoon wasted. Those are two dudes who have worked together in voice acting for so long and for so many years that like they basically were in, like, if you think of a cartoon from your childhood, there's a high percentage chance that one of those two dudes was in it.
Yeah. Not just your childhood. I mean even like Futurama. From whatever. I mean, they're just
and they're still doing it to this day, man. But they've got like these incredible careers that like a lot of folks who don't know who they are might not recognize them by their face or like that. Imagine having all of these like incredible IMDb credentials and then like being able to go to the store and not have people like mob you.
Right.
I think it's a little different now thanks to the internet. Like their podcasts have done really well and stuff. So like I
Oh,
think they're a
sure.
little
Yeah.
more
Well,
well known now.
Comic
But
Cons and stuff like that, they're signing autographs. So
I
yeah,
bet those
their face
guys.
might be out there a little bit more, but yeah,
I got
no,
a
I hear
chance
you.
to I got a chance to meet him in 2014 at Rose City Comic
Oh,
Con. My wife,
nice.
like they were just kind of chilling at the like signing tables or whatever. Nobody was around. My wife like dragged me over there. She's like, "You're gonna go say hi." I'm like, "No, I can't. They're busy and it costs
They're
money and
famous.
I don't want
Right.
like." And she's like, "No, just go say hi." And so I did. And oh my god, I'm so glad that I did. They were so
Yeah.
incredibly nice and sweet. And like, listen, when I tell you you can't stop Rob Paulson from falling into his Yakko voice. Like he will just do it. You don't even worry about asking him to do it because that's just him. He just loves his characters so much that
Right.
he'll just talk to you as Yakko for like a couple minutes and
Right.
like
Oh,
it's
that's
nothing.
amazing.
And meanwhile, in your head, you're just screaming, "Oh my
Sure.
god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm talking to Yakko! Oh my god! Oh my god!"
Yeah. David Hayter's a lot like that with Solid Snake,
Oh yeah.
where he's just like, yeah, he's like, oh, thanks for the, whatever. I don't know, his Solid Snake, but yeah, this super cool, and that's one of the things I didn't really know about Comic Cons and stuff like that until later was it's free to say hi. You don't have to buy anything. I mean, it's just like you can just walk up there and not buy anything, but of course they'll ask you to move along. But if you just walk up and say hi, especially if there's no one in line or no one bothering, what are you gonna do?
If they've got a big line or there's a lot of people or whatever, like you don't want to be rude,
Yeah.
and they might have to do a little crowd management stuff, whatever. But man, you know who else is like that is Tim Kitzrow.
Oh my god, yeah.
You cannot stop Tim from doing the NBA Jam voice. He will just do it.
He there was a time in the 80s where you knew you were in an arcade that had Miss Pac-Man, Robotron, or Punch Out because you could just hear it across the room. It was always jacked up. You could hear that body blow, or you could hear that Robotron that that kind of sounds.
Yeah.
You know you're at a convention with Tim Kitzrow because you'll hear him across the room, windows shattering.
Boom shakalaka, just from out of the ether.
Yeah, I'm oftentimes next to him at a table in a lot of conventions where they'll team the two of us together, and we get along great. I've known him for a long time. He's also
a really great dude.
If you ever talk to Tim Kitzrow, ask him about breakfast cereal. He's as nostalgic as I am.
Really?
For cereal. Yeah. Paul Niemeyer as well. You know, the guy who does the Mortal Kombat logo.
So, oh wow.
Yeah. So it becomes one of those things where it's like, oh, wait a minute, here's this new thing that I've never had a chance to, because usually they talk to Tim Kitzrow about how'd you become the voice of NBA Jam? How did you, whatever the other things were, what other, in Blitz, he did the voice of Blitz too. And we actually just talked to him as a human. Funny enough, he's just some dude. Paul Niemeyer, again, Mortal Kombat guy, same thing. Well, because he worked for an agency, and Paul Niemeyer did artwork for a bunch of cereal boxes too. So
really,
so it's like you literally like, oh yeah, he's known for Mortal Kombat and a lot of great arcade marquees like Satan's Hollow and Wacko was one that's a personal favorite of mine. But yeah, he's been in advertising for years, so he's done like movie posters and whatever else too. So it's just, if you just go up and say hi to him and pick their brain for a little bit, you'll find all kinds of cool stuff that just like, I didn't know this. They're just waiting to tell you.
If I'm lucky, maybe I can get him on the podcast. We could talk about it.
Oh, I promise you that. I can't promise you anything, but I know both of them, so I'll reach out sometime, and that I'm sure that would be a fun podcast. Either of them or both of them, sure. So
I know Tim and I definitely have plenty to talk about because he's the intro for my first mixtape that I released in 2022.
Oh, there you go. They got something in common right there.
He recorded something for me in 2019. He came by the DJ booth and started doing his NBA Jam voice into my microphone, like to say goodbye to everybody. And I reached over and just hit the record button on my laptop and just got all of it.
Yeah.
And, nice. It was a live mic in a DJ booth at a big hall. So like I had to do a lot of post-processing to get it clean and
all that.
Yeah. I had to fight with a lot of that to kind of get it clean and usable, but the end product I was very happy with. And,
so good.
To say nothing of the fact that Tim freaking Kitzrow was like shouting me out.
Yeah. He's a cool dude. We love him. Yeah.
He's such a good guy.
Mainstay at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. So I'm hoping he'll be there again in 2024.
Dude, this was everything that I wanted it to be. We went so long and I don't know how much of this I even want to cut out because like it's such a good time hanging out with you, man. But
always.
is there, can you give me a little bit of like a plug, like any YouTube channels or websites or anything that you want people to know about?
That's fine. Yeah, John Riggs. I am so creative with my YouTube channel. It's also my YouTube channel name. It's just youtube.com/John Riggs, all one word, JOHNRIGGS. Rigged Games, spelled RIGG''D, without the apostrophe, of course. So that, never mind that. But Rigged Games is kind of like my link tree, and that will link you. That has social media, YouTube, and then it also links to my shop where I can. Again, I sell at conventions. You'll see me at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo every time, and a lot of the other Northwest expos too. But if you're looking for like those arcade air fresheners or the cereal book or the homebrews I make, they're all on riggedgames.com. It's rigged without the E. It's RIGGD, riggedgames.com.
Nice. Well, John, thank you so much, man.
Always.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of my interview with John Riggs. If you want to see the rest in its entirety, the episode is over 2 hours long. Over 2 hours? It's about 2 hours long. And I will be putting the entire thing up on Patreon. And so if you want to see the whole interview, you can find it over there, patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. My biggest and sincerest thanks to John Riggs for coming on and hanging out with me. Of course, my big thanks as well to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo for partnering with me on this show. I am so looking forward to what we have planned going forward. This is the end of the first batch of episodes. Episode 3 is already recorded. I'm speaking with Jay from Square Pegs. It's an excellent interview, and I'm looking forward to that. And of course, I am working on my guests for 4, 5, 6, and beyond. And so I hope you will stick around for that. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing on the YouTube channel, or please consider following the podcast wherever audio podcasts are available. Folks, my name is DJ Switch. You can find me at DJ Switch PDX on whatever social platform, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks.